Hey friends, hope you're doing well. In today's video, we like to do a little project which requires us to use the AWS CLI to use their API endpoints for large language models, and we'll combine this with Chainlit to have a nice user interface. And then we can ask our questions to the large language model, and then of course we get our results. So let's get started. For that, what I need, or what we need, is actually the AWS CLI installed, because then we can use, of course, the AWS services, and also, of course, you need to have an AWS account. So that's a requirement. And beside this, of course, then you need to have Python installed, and then a few libraries, which I will now import. So to get started, what I need is a JSON, because I want to send data to an API. That's why I need to have JSON, because we send it basically in JSON format. So I want to import JSON first. Then what else do we need? Well, we need the AWS library in Python, which is Boto3. So we can say import Boto3. And of course, if you do not have those libraries installed, you can install it via pip, for instance, so pip install, or you can also use Conda or maybe another package manager, whatever you want to use. So now we have those two things, so import JSON, and no, that's not what we need. So then we're going to import Chainlit for the web frontend, so import, in this case, Chainlit as CL. CL is just an abbreviation for that. Okay, so we have this. Then when we use Chainlit, we have actually we have options to use decorators. Decorators mean that we can wrap our functions in the decorator, and then this will be, the function will be executed in the decorator context. So in Chainlit, we're going to use two decorators, the onChatStart decorator and the onMessage. The other ones, but in this case, I'm going to use those two. So for that, I'm going to say and then cl.onChatStart. You can see there are various ones, but I want to use this one. And then I need a function, so I will just call my starting function start. And then for that, what I'm going to use is I want to at first start my client. So for that, I say my, in this case, let's say client is equal to, and I say boto3.client, okay, and this is the same way as for all the AWS services. So if you want to create a Lambda function, for instance, or any other kind of service, you can always call boto3.client and then actually the service itself. So S3, for instance, anything like that. So in our case, it will be Bedrock, and it's not called Bedrock, but it's called Bedrock runtime. So I say Bedrock minus runtime. And then also I want to make sure that I have it in the correct region. So I specify region name here, and I'm going to use US East 1. So I tried at first in a German region, that didn't work for me. So I'm going to use this region here. And then I gonna actually, this client, which we create here, I want to store it in my Chainlit session. This is what I'm going to do on chatstart, so that the client itself is actually instantiated and then saved in my session. So in the session which we're going to use when we call then the Chainlit user interface. So for that, I say cl dot, in this case, user session, and then dot set, and we simply set the client equal to the client. So we have this. Okay, so now we have stored that, and now the second function which we're going to use or need is actually the onMessage decorator. So at cl.on, in this case, message, like that. And then also we have a function, but in this case, make sure that we're going to use an async function. So we're going to call asynchronously. So I say async, and then def, and then we call the function whatever we want. Let's call it chat, but you can name it whatever you like. And what it takes is a message, which is cl.messageObject, like that. Okay. Hit that, it's okay. That's what we need, okay. And then what we do is we use the client, so we get the client back from the user session, like that, cl.usersession.get the client itself, and then also the message. Now, when we have the Chainlit interface, what we basically get is this message object here, and the message itself contains, is just an object, but what we need is the content. So the content of this message object here is what we basically, put in our chat window. So that's why we say that the message, or I constantly call it M, is message.content. So this gives us really the text which the user, in our case we, then later on, but maybe also other people which are going to use your service, will actually put in. So the question itself, which we're going to put then to the large language model. So next we need an object, a data object. So we AWS, or in this case Bedrock, requires us now to create a dictionary. And in this dictionary, we need to set a few things. So for instance, we need to set what kind of model we want to use, because there are various models, like Jurassic model, for instance, is available, or also Claude and Claude 2. And also a few other things, like that is a JSON application, and then of course also the prompt itself, and a few other things. And I already have this, so let me just copy paste it. So it's a little faster than if I write it myself. But also this is available in the AWS documentation. So that's actually where I get this specific format here. So the data itself is, as you can see here, you can specify the model. In this case, we're going to use Claude 2. So which a lot of people say is better than ChatGPT 4, by the way, or GPT 4, by the way. But this is something you can try out yourself later on. And then, of course, we dump the data. This is the body. That's why we use JSON.dumps. And here it's important that the prompt itself is stored like that. So you can see it has a human, double point, then the message itself. In this case, we're going to use an F string here. So this one here is simply that. So if you call this, for instance, my message, then of course you also need to specify here my message. So that must be the same, because this is where we put our message then inside this body. And then we send this specific body to the endpoint. So also then assistant double point, and that's it. So this specific prompt is required for the Claude 2 model. So if you want to use another model, make sure that you take a look at the AWS documentation, because this structure here, the prompt itself, the format itself, is not the same for all the models. And also the additional parameters here also might differ. So that's why it's important to first decide what kind of model you want to use, and then take a look at the specific model in the Bedrock service on AWS. And then it's just specify, okay, these are the parameters you can set. So that's how that works. And you can see here, there are a few things. These are the default ones. I did not really play around with them, but you can specify that. So how many tokens you want to sample from, the temperature itself. So should it be a little more, well, unexpected answer, or should it be a deterministic answer? So the lower the temperature, the more deterministic the answer. And then also the sampling, it says top K is 250 here, top P, and so on. So these are a few parameters you can set. You can also read more about them if you want to use them, but basically they are often the same for all the large language models. So I mean, the top K and top P and so on, these specific parameters also exist, for instance, for GPT model and so on. So that's not something specific to Claude 2. Okay, and then the version itself here, which is this one here, and that's basically it. So that's the data we're gonna send inside our, of course, great chainlet user interface. By the way, you can also, of course, use only the API like that without an interface, and of course, just remove all the chainlet part. But I think it's much, well, more pretty if you're going to use some kind of nice looking interface. Okay, so having said that, now we have our data. Now next we need to invoke the model. So actually there's not much to do for us now. We just need to get a response. So let's say response is equal to, and then client.invoke. And that's why you do not always use these predefined answers here, because we do not invoke an endpoint, we invoke a model. So that's wrong. And we say client.invoke invoke model. Here you go. That's the method we're going to use. And then, of course, what we need to give it is the data. And because this is here a dictionary, of course, we can use the double star quarks argument here. So we can simply put in our data like that. And then finally, of course, we get data back. And this data is, of course, in a JSON format. So we need to load it first to convert it to a Python dictionary. So that's why we're going to here say results. Result is equal to JSON.loads, JSON.loads. So .load s, this method, and then response body .read. Okay, that should be fine. I don't think we need to decode it, so let's actually get rid of this first and try it out without the decoding part. So that should actually be enough, but we'll see. Okay, so that's basically what we get. So the response itself, again, is a dictionary, and then in the dictionary itself, there are various things where we can use. And in this case, we get the body here. And the body itself contains also a lot of additional information. So still not only the contents, but of course, we only want to have the text itself. So that's why finally, we're gonna wait, because remember, we used an async function here. So we're gonna wait here now our cl.message. This is what we send back when someone enters a question inside the user interface from Chainlet. And what we're gonna use is actually this one here. So from the result itself is this one, the completion. So this is a dictionary, remember, when we load it with JSON here. And the completion part contains the text. So the actual text which the model returns. And this will be sent back. And that's what we will see on the screen just in a minute. And that's basically it. So this is our little AWS project with using the Bedrock service, including a nice looking interface from Chainlet. Of course, you could also Streamlit would also be an option, or also Gradio, I think, would also be an option, but I personally prefer either Chainlit or Streamlit, but it's my personal preference. Of course, if you like Gradio, which also is used by a lot of tools out there, you can also play around with that. Or maybe you have a complete different interface, then of course that's also fine, right? So, okay, having said that, let's get started. So that should work actually. So now let's actually run this. And whenever you use Chainlit, Streamlit, then of course you cannot run Python and then the project name, but of course then you need to have either Chainlit run or Streamlit run. In our case it's Chainlit, so let's say Chainlit run, and then the name, which is AWS project in my case, project.py. And let's run this, and then let's see whether this works. So it should work on the local host. So just a second. So the app is running. Okay, here we go. So let me then drag this in here, so you can see that this is basically our interface now. And you can see here, we have here the option to now write some text to send our data. And let's actually go in here and go to the settings. And first, let's say use dark mode. I think that's easier, at least for me, hopefully for you as well. Okay, now we have here the option to send our message, and let's use something. I'm a big anime fan, so let's actually ask about animes. So list 3 great animes. Of course, you can ask everything you want, but that's just an example. Okay, so then let's run this. Let's send this to the Bedrock service, and let's just see what Claude gives us in return. So just a second here. And then we should actually get an answer. And here you can see, this is the answer. Here are 3 good animes, and then you get Full Metal Alchemist, okay, and then Attack on Titan. And obviously, then you can see it breaks. So why is there no 3rd anime mentioned here? Well, this is because of the token count. So you can see here, there are a lot of tokens already here because it describes the anime as well. And if we take a closer look at our code here, we can see that here the max tokens to sample is 100, and then top K is 250. So you need to increase these sizes here if you want to have longer answers. That's the only reason why we did not see all 3 examples, but in general, that should work. So if you want to extend this, of course, increase here the numbers, and then you should see more tokens and then also the full answer here. But hopefully you can clearly see that we have now a nice looking chat interface with Chainlit created, and here we're going to use the AWS service, and in this case the Claude V2 model. But of course, as I said, there are other models out there like Jurassic and other ones, and you can try them out as well if you want. So that's it for this video. Hopefully that was interesting to you. If so, give this video a like. Also subscribe to the channel if you have not done so far. And if you want to learn more about these topics, just let me know in the comments. And also share your feedback about your personal experience with this one, or maybe with other options, large language models, and so on. So thanks a lot, take care, and hopefully see you in the next video. Until then, best guys.